December 1944, Ardennes Forest, Belgium. German infantry are dug in near Bastogne, preparing for what would become the Battle of the Bulge. A veteran Oberstleutnant named Klaus Becker writes in his diary, "We fear the American artillery more than their tanks, more than their aircraft, more than anything. You can hide from tanks. You can hear aircraft coming. But the American artillery, it finds you anywhere. Always." This sentiment was universal among German soldiers on the Western Front. When asked after the war what they feared most, the overwhelming answer wasn't American infantry, armor, or air power. It was American artillery. Why? Because American artillery had a capability no other army possessed, the ability to accurately deliver massive firepower anywhere, anytime, with terrifying speed and precision. German soldiers developed a saying, "You can run from American artillery. You just can't hide." This is the story of why. It's the story of how American artillery doctrine, technology, and training created a weapon system so effective that German soldiers learned to fear the sound of American forward observers more than anything else on the battlefield. It's the story of men who thought they'd escaped, repositioned, found safety, only to have American shells find them again within minutes. This is the story of the killing machine that won the war. June 7, 1944. A day after D-Day. German infantry of the 352nd Division are retreating from Omaha Beach toward defensive positions inland. They've been fighting for 36 hours straight, exhausted and bloodied but still organized. The company commander, Hauptmann Friedrich Müller, orders his men to withdraw 3 kilometers to a prepared position in a wooded area. They disengage from American forces and move quickly through the Norman countryside. Within an hour, they reach the new position, a defensive line with trenches, camouflage, and good fields of fire. The men collapse into the positions, relieved. They've escaped the beachhead chaos. They're in prepared defenses. They have a moment to breathe. Müller sets up his command post in a farmhouse cellar. His artillery liaison reports to division that they're in position and ready. 10 minutes later, American artillery shells begin landing. Not random. Not area fire. Precise impacts on the trenches, the command post, the supply depot. The American forward observer has found them and called in coordinates. Within 15 minutes, 3 artillery battalions, over 50 guns, are firing time-on-target missions. All shells land simultaneously, giving no warning. The position is devastated. Half the company is killed or wounded before they can even respond. The survivors retreat again, this time in panic. Müller, wounded and shocked, can't understand, how did the Americans find them so quickly? How did they coordinate so many guns so fast? The answer is a combination of technology, doctrine, and training that German artillery simply cannot match. The secret of American artillery effectiveness starts with organization. The Fire Direction Center, FDC. Every American artillery battalion has an FDC staffed by trained fire direction specialists. These aren't just soldiers with radios. They're mathematicians who can calculate firing solutions in minutes. Here's how it works: a forward observer spots a target and radios coordinates. The FDC receives the call. Within seconds, specialists calculate distance to target, elevation needed, powder charge required, time of flight, and whether multiple batteries should fire. The solution is transmitted to gun crews. Guns are laid and fired. Total time from observer call to rounds impacting, 3 to 5 minutes for a single battery. This is revolutionary. German artillery in 1944 requires similar calculations but takes much longer, often 15 to 30 minutes from target identification to first rounds. Why? German FDCs are less standardized and less trained. But American artillery goes further. The FDC can coordinate multiple battalions, up to 50-plus guns, to fire time-on-target missions where all shells land simultaneously. No warning. No ranging shots. Just instant devastation. A German position might hear a few ranging rounds and take cover. American time on target gives no warning. Hundreds of shells arrive at once. This coordination is what makes American artillery uniquely deadly. It's not that American guns are better, they're comparable to German artillery. It's that the system can bring massive firepower to bear faster and more accurately than any other army in the world. American artillery's effectiveness depends on forward observers, FOs. These are specially trained officers or NCOs who accompany frontline infantry units, spot targets, and call for fire. The German army has artillery observers too. But American FOs have capabilities German observers lack. First, direct communication. American FOs have radio sets that connect directly to artillery FDCs. They don't need to relay through multiple command layers. They see a target, they call it in, shells arrive within minutes. Second, authority. American FOs are authorized to call for fire on their own judgment. They don't need permission from higher command. If they see a target worth hitting, they hit it. Third, training. American FOs attend extensive schools teaching target identification, coordinate calculation, and fire adjustment. They're artillery experts embedded with infantry. Fourth, integration. American infantry commanders trust their FOs. The FO-infantry partnership is seamless. German artillery observers exist but operate more independently, with less integration and authority. Example from the Battle of the Bulge, an American infantry platoon is pinned down by German machine guns in a village. The platoon's attached FO, Lieutenant James Morrison, identifies the German positions. He radios coordinates to his battalion FDC. 3 minutes later, 155 mm shells are landing on the German positions. The machine guns are destroyed. The platoon advances. Total time from "we're pinned down" to "threat eliminated," 5 minutes. This responsiveness makes American FOs the most feared individuals on the battlefield. German soldiers learn to watch for Americans with radios and distinctive map cases, signs of an FO. Killing the FO becomes a priority because without him, American artillery is blind. August 1944. The Falaise Gap. German forces are retreating from Normandy, trying to escape encirclement. Tens of thousands of German soldiers, vehicles, and equipment stream through a narrow corridor between American and Canadian forces. They think if they can get through the gap, they'll escape to fight another day. They're wrong. American artillery observers position themselves on high ground overlooking the retreat routes. They have perfect observation of the German columns packed on the roads. The FOs begin calling in coordinates. Within minutes, every American artillery battalion in range is firing. But this isn't random area bombardment. Each FO directs fire onto specific sections of the German column. One FO targets the lead vehicles, blocking the road. Another targets the rear, preventing retreat. Others walk fire through the middle, destroying everything. German soldiers abandon vehicles and scatter into fields, trying to escape the killing zone. But American artillery follows them. FOs spot the scattered groups and call in fire on those positions. The soldiers run again. More shells follow. The pattern repeats for days. German survivors describe it as hell. They couldn't escape. Wherever they went, American shells found them. The Falaise Gap becomes a graveyard. Thousands of German soldiers killed. Thousands more captured. Equipment losses are catastrophic. The German army in France is effectively destroyed. American artillery played the decisive role, not through random bombardment, but through precise, directed fire that gave German forces nowhere to hide. The most devastating American artillery technique is time on target, TOT. This tactic involves multiple artillery batteries firing at different times so all shells land on the target simultaneously. Why is this effective? Traditional artillery fires sequentially, battery A fires, shells land, battery B fires, more shells land. This gives the enemy warning. They hear the first shells and take cover. Time on target is different. Fire direction centers calculate exactly when each battery must fire so that despite different distances to target, all shells arrive at the same moment. The result, sudden, overwhelming bombardment with no warning. Example, December 1944, Battle of the Bulge. German forces are massing for an attack near Bastogne. An American FO spots the assembly area and calls for a TOT mission. The FDC coordinates 6 artillery battalions, 72 guns total. Each battalion is at a different distance from the target. The FDC calculates firing times. Battalion A, closest fires at H plus 5 minutes. Battalion B, fires at H plus 4 minutes. Battalion C, fires at H plus 3 minutes. All shells calculated to land at H plus 6 minutes exactly. The German soldiers in the assembly area have no warning. One moment, silence. The next, 432 shells land simultaneously. The assembly area is obliterated. The attack never happens. German forces cannot understand how Americans coordinate this kind of firepower. Their own artillery doctrine doesn't include anything comparable. The psychological effect is devastating. German soldiers never feel safe, even in rear areas, because American TOT missions can reach anywhere anytime without warning. American artillery superiority relies heavily on radio communication. Every level has reliable radios. Forward observers have SCR 610 radios connecting them to FDCs, fire direction centers have radios connecting them to gun batteries. Battalion and division artillery have radios coordinating multiple units. This radio network allows instant communication and coordination. Compare this to German artillery, which relies more on telephone lines. Lines are easily cut by bombardment or advancing troops. When lines are cut, German artillery communication degrades. American radio communication is resilient. If one radio fails, there are backups. If one FDC is destroyed, another takes over. The system is redundant and flexible. This communication advantage means American artillery can respond to targets within minutes instead of hours. Coordinate multiple battalions instantly. Adjust fire in real time based on FO feedback. Shift targets rapidly as battlefield situations change. Example from the Rhineland Campaign, 1945, American forces are advancing across Germany. German forces establish a defensive position blocking the advance. Within 10 minutes of American scouts identifying the position, artillery is landing on it. The Germans retreat to a secondary position. 5 minutes later, artillery finds them again. They retreat a third time. More artillery. The pattern continues for hours. German forces are constantly displaced, never allowed to establish effective defenses, because American artillery finds them faster than they can reposition. This persistent pressure, enabled by radio communication, breaks German defensive cohesion and forces continuous retreat. In late 1944, American artillery gains a devastating new weapon, the VT proximity fuse. This is a shell fuse that uses a miniature radio transmitter to detect when the shell is near the ground or target, detonating it in the air rather than on impact. Why is this revolutionary? Traditional artillery shells explode on impact with the ground. Soldiers in trenches or foxholes are protected by the earth. The explosion goes upward and outward but doesn't penetrate cover effectively. VT-fused shells explode 20 to 30 feet above the ground. The blast and shrapnel rain down into trenches, foxholes, and any cover. There's nowhere to hide except inside a bunker. German soldiers call VT-fused shells devil rounds because they negate traditional defensive positions. You can't dig a hole to protect yourself, the explosion comes from above. The VT fuse is one of the most closely guarded secrets of the war. Americans are forbidden from firing VT shells where duds might be recovered by Germans. When VT shells are used, the effect on German morale is catastrophic. Example, Ardennes, January 1945. German infantry are dug into defensive positions. American artillery begins shelling with VT-fused rounds. The German soldiers, in their foxholes, are killed by airbursts. They have no effective defense. Casualties are far higher than with normal artillery. German commanders report that VT-fused American artillery is impossible to defend against and recommend immediate retreat from any position under VT bombardment. The technology gives American artillery an advantage that German forces simply cannot counter. What makes American fire direction centers so effective? The answer is mathematics and training. Every FDC officer and specialist attends artillery school where they learn complex ballistic calculations. When an FO calls in a target, the FDC must calculate azimuth, direction, from gun to target. Range, distance, to target. Elevation angle based on range and weapon characteristics. Powder charge needed, different charges for different ranges. Time of flight, how long the shell takes to reach target. Meteorological corrections, wind, temperature, air density affect shell trajectory. Corrections for gun wear, barrels wear down, affecting range. All of this must be calculated quickly, within 2 to 3 minutes for effective response. American FDC personnel use slide rules, firing tables, and practiced expertise to make these calculations rapidly and accurately. The accuracy is remarkable. First-round hits are common. Adjustments, when needed, are minimal. German artillery can perform similar calculations but takes much longer. German FDCs are less standardized, less extensively trained, and have fewer personnel dedicated to fire direction. The result, American artillery is consistently faster and more accurate than German counterparts. This mathematical precision, combined with radio communication and TOT tactics, creates an artillery system that German forces cannot match. German soldiers learn that American artillery doesn't miss. If an FO has seen you, you're already dead, you just don't know it yet. American artillery isn't just accurate and fast, it's mobile. American doctrine emphasizes mobile warfare. Artillery must keep up with advancing infantry and armor. This requires self-propelled guns, though most U.S. artillery is still towed. Motorized transport for gun crews and ammunition. Rapid displacement procedures to move guns forward as troops advance. Efficient logistics to keep ammunition flowing. American artillery units practice rapid displacement, receiving orders, hitching guns to trucks, moving to new positions, and being ready to fire again in under 30 minutes. This mobility means American artillery is always in range. As American forces advance, artillery follows. German forces cannot escape by retreating because American guns move forward to maintain range. Example, the pursuit across France, August-September 1944. American forces are advancing 50 to 100 kilometers per week. German forces retreat ahead of them. But American artillery keeps pace. Every time German forces try to establish a defensive line, American artillery is already in range. There's no respite, no time to consolidate defenses, because the guns are always there. German artillery, by contrast, often lags behind retreating forces. German logistics are strained. Fuel shortages limit mobility. Horse-drawn artillery, still common in German army, can't keep pace with motorized retreats. This means German forces often retreat beyond the range of their own artillery support while remaining within range of pursuing American artillery. The result, German forces are under constant artillery fire while unable to return effective counter-battery fire. It's a one-sided slaughter that accelerates German collapse. American artillery dominance isn't just about hitting German infantry. It's about destroying German artillery before it can fire back. Counter-battery fire, artillery targeting enemy artillery, is an American specialty. How it works: sound ranging, special microphones detect the sound of German guns firing and calculate their position. Flash ranging, observers spot the muzzle flash of German guns and triangulate their position. Radar, Late war radar tracks German shells in flight and calculates the origin point. Once German artillery positions are identified, American artillery fires counter-battery missions, usually with large-caliber guns like 155 mm or 8-inch howitzers. The effect is devastating. German artillery crews fire a few rounds and then face immediate, accurate American counter-battery fire. Their positions are destroyed before they can displace. German artillery learns to shoot and scoot, fire quickly and move immediately. But this degrades their effectiveness. They can't conduct sustained fire missions because they must constantly displace to avoid American counter-battery. Example, Battle of the Bulge, December 1944. German artillery initially has advantage due to surprise and concentration of forces. But within days, American counter-battery fire begins destroying German gun positions faster than they can be replaced. By late December, German artillery is largely suppressed. German soldiers complain that their own artillery has disappeared, while American artillery is everywhere. This artillery dominance contributes directly to the failure of the German offensive. Without effective artillery support, German infantry and armor are vulnerable to American firepower. Beyond physical destruction, American artillery inflicts psychological damage on German forces. The constant, inescapable threat creates combat stress that degrades unit effectiveness even when shells aren't falling. German soldiers describe the psychological effects: constant tension, you never know when American shells will arrive. Every moment is stressful. Helplessness, you can't fight back against artillery. You can only endure it. Inevitability, if an American FO has seen you, you're doomed. There's no escape. Random death, artillery kills without warning. Your buddy is alive 1 second, dead the next. These psychological effects accumulate over time. German units under sustained American artillery fire show higher desertion rates, lower combat effectiveness, faster surrender when American infantry attack, reluctance to counterattack or maneuver, movement draws artillery fire. German commanders report that prolonged exposure to American artillery makes their troops unreliable and demoralized. Some units refuse orders to advance because they know American artillery will target them. After-action reports from German units consistently mention American artillery as the primary factor degrading morale and combat effectiveness, more than American infantry, armor, or air power. The fear of American artillery becomes so pervasive that German soldiers develop superstitions and fatalistic attitudes. Some believe American FOs can see through camouflage. Others think American shells are guided, they're not, but the accuracy suggests it. This psychological dominance is as important as physical destruction. An army that fears to move, to concentrate, to counterattack because of artillery has already lost tactical flexibility. American artillery's superiority isn't just about doctrine and technology, it's also about sheer quantity. American industrial production by 1944 is producing artillery shells in staggering numbers. The statistics are overwhelming. Daily ammunition expenditure. U.S. forces in Europe fire approximately 5 million artillery rounds per month, over 160,000 per day. Shell production. American factories produce over 1 million artillery shells per week. Artillery pieces. The U.S. deploys over 8,000 artillery pieces in the European theater by 1944. Compare this to German production, which by 1944 is limited by raw material shortages, copper, steel. Fuel shortages limiting factory operations. Allied bombing of factories. Loss of territory containing resources. German forces experience chronic ammunition shortages from 1944 onward. German artillery units are often rationed to 10 to 20 rounds per gun per day, barely enough for defensive fire. American artillery has no such restrictions. If an FO requests fire, shells are available. Hundreds of rounds can be fired on a single target if needed. This industrial advantage means American forces can use artillery lavishly. Suspected enemy position. Shell it. German troops spotted moving. Shell them. Defensive line identified. Shell it for hours. German forces cannot compete. Their artillery conservation due to shortages means American forces face far less counter-battery fire and can operate more freely. The industrial war is won by American production, and artillery is where this advantage is most visible on the battlefield. One final advantage of American artillery: the system continually learns and improves throughout the war. After every battle, units conduct after-action reviews. Lessons learned are documented. Improvements are implemented quickly. Successful techniques spread rapidly through the force. This creates a continuous improvement cycle that German artillery cannot match. Examples of wartime improvements: improved FO infantry integration based on Normandy experience. Refinement of TOT calculations for greater accuracy. Development of serenade missions, harassing fire time to prevent sleep. Better counter-battery techniques using sound ranging. Enhanced coordination between artillery and air observers. These improvements aren't theoretical. They're implemented at battalion level within weeks of lessons being identified. American military culture encourages junior officers to innovate and share successful techniques. German military culture is more rigid. Doctrine changes slowly, filtered through higher command. By 1945, American artillery doctrine has evolved far beyond 1944, incorporating combat lessons and technological advances. German artillery, hampered by shortages and rigid doctrine, has fallen further behind. The gap isn't just technological or material, it's organizational and cultural. American forces learn faster and adapt better, making their artillery progressively more effective throughout the war. Why could German forces never escape American artillery? The answer is a perfect storm of advantages: doctrine, fire direction centers enabled rapid, coordinated fire. Technology, radios, VT fuses, sound ranging gave capabilities German forces lacked. Training, FDCs and FOs were extensively trained specialists, not just soldiers with radios. Organization, integration of FOs with infantry meant targets were identified and engaged instantly. Mobility, artillery kept pace with advancing forces, maintaining constant pressure. Industrial production, unlimited ammunition meant lavish fire missions. Continuous improvement, lessons learned were implemented quickly throughout the force. Each advantage multiplied the others. Radio communication made coordination possible. Coordination enabled TOT missions. TOT missions maximized the effect of industrial firepower. Trained FOs identified targets that mobile artillery could engage before German forces could respond. The result, an artillery system so effective that German soldiers learned it was futile to run. You can run from American artillery. You just can't hide. They thought they'd escaped when they displaced to new positions. They were wrong. American FOs found them. They thought they were safe in rear areas. They were wrong. American artillery range covered deep rear positions. They thought camouflage and concealment would protect them. They were wrong. American FOs were too well trained to be fooled. In the end, American artillery created an inescapable killing zone that covered the entire battlefield. German forces could surrender, or they could die under shells that always found them. Those were the only options. This is why American artillery was the most feared weapon of the war, not because it was the most destructive in absolute terms, but because it was inescapable, unavoidable, and relentless. The shells always found you. Always.